Dragon Ball Sparking Zero has over 180 characters, but I think it's fair to say that given that it's actually finally introducing the Dragon Ball Super characters from the get-go, given the continuation of the manga, despite the problems that would have to be overcome, we would all want the Moro arc to eventually be released on DLC for Sparking Zero. In this video, I talk about which characters from the Moro arc would be brilliant to play with in Sparking Zero, what would be their character types, their special moves, and any abilities these characters may bring to the table, and what potential maps could be added to the game, and discuss some what-if scenarios that could happen in the Moro arc. Of course, I want to know your thoughts down in the comments section. Who are your 5 mains going to be? I really want to know that. So, the Moro arc, probably the best arc Dragon Ball Super has produced in my humble opinion, at least in terms of the whole package. Moro was a savage, dastardly, world-eating villain that wasn't just strong, he could basically use magic and steal your energy. Already, my mind is working on how many different ways you could actually use Moro and his abilities in an arena fighter like Sparking Zero. I'm sure yours is too. So, I'm only going to introduce 5 characters from the Moro arc. There are an abundance of new characters in the Moro arc. It's the longest chapter in Dragon Ball's history, even longer than the Buu arc. So I'm only going to mention 5 brand new characters with different playing styles that would be interesting to use in Sparking Zero, and maybe give some honourable mentions. By all means, if you feel like a certain character from this arc that I haven't mentioned would be brilliant to use in Sparking Zero, you know what to do. Comment section. So obviously I'm going to start off with Moro. Moro has several different iterations in the same arc. He goes through many evolutions. I'm going to offer 4 different versions of Moro that I believe could all have unique fighting styles in this game. And no, I'm not going with Planet Moro. I'm not sure how they would actually incorporate that into the actual game, but it would be pretty sick if they could find a game mode or style to actually incorporate it in a future DLC. So the 4 versions of Moro that I feel could be introduced are Decrepit Moro, some people may refer to him as Old Moro, Prime Moro, Moro 7 Free, and Morris. Now in terms of an ability that Moro may have that could be introduced in the DLC, so what I'm offering is that Moro and creatures like Moro should get their own playing style or character style. Moro should have magic and the ability to steal other people's ki. Now in this game we do get the android character styles that allow android 19 and 20 to basically grow in ki bars if you hit them or send an energy blast their way. Well, I believe that Moro should actually also grow in power if your character charges up. So if you charge up, Moro charges up automatically. Now I don't believe you should charge up at the same rate as you charge up. I think it should probably be at a bit of a slower pace. But ultimately, this is how Moro somewhat functioned in the original manga, where basically every time Goku and Vegeta powered up to a new transformation or charged up, Moro was stealing their energy. Of course, they didn't know at the time. And I believe he could also have a revenge counter that if you attack him with a ki blast, if the counter is timed to perfection, he can also basically eat the ki blast and once again gain power. Now all Moro versions would likely have these abilities. Obviously the stronger versions of Moro gain more abilities, but the decrepit old version of Moro would likely use a lot of magic attacks and probably would be a ki blast user type as well as this new type, and Prime Moro would basically be a more powered up version of that. You could have it that once old Moro absorbs enough energy in the fight, he actually transforms into Prime Moro. Moro 7 Free, however, would have the ability to copy people's abilities. So how could this be deployed in the game? Well, if he is to somewhat use his special move, and his special move is basically the copy ability, I believe he should therefore match the opponent's power output and health output to signify that he's copied their abilities. Imagine playing against somebody who's got a lot of health left and a lot of ki left, and you're on the verge of losing. You copy their abilities and you become as strong as them. Maybe you can use one of their special moves. Maybe it's a lot to incorporate, but there's definitely a lot of interesting ways you could go about this. It reminds me of the Ginyu ability where you steal their bodies and you all of a sudden have their energy, but Moro can basically do it by just copying your ability, just remains in the same body. So a very similar concept, just deployed differently. Now before I move on to Mayris, I just want to talk about 2 other characters because you could say that they would have similar abilities to those of those previous versions of Moro I've just talked about, and that is 7-3 himself, OG 7-3. He would be able to copy people's abilities as well. But to make 7-3 unique in the game, perhaps he can copy up to 3 enemies' abilities, whereas Moro could probably only copy 1. I know that is somewhat off-key with what can potentially happen in the actual real manga, but it's a way to make 7-3 unique. Another one is Mayrus. Angelic trainee Mayrus would have obviously Ultra Instinct. So he could base Mayrus very much off of Goku's Ultra Instinct and Whis' Ultra Instinct in the game itself, but also give Mayrus a staff or a gun to use as a weapon in the game, and maybe give him some of those sword type aesthetics, but with a staff instead. He's pretty damn silky with that staff when he absolutely rickrolls Moro in the manga. Now obviously onto the 4th iteration of Moro would be Mayrus would likely have Ultra Instinct, but I propose that he should burn out at an even faster rate than what Goku's Ultra Instinct does or Mayrus' Ultra Instinct does, simply because we know in the manga his body cannot actually handle that power. So I feel a good way to represent that would be to have his Ultra Instinct burn out faster, so it consumes far more energy than their UI does. They could also introduce Sagambo. I don't think Sagambo would be a particularly unique fighter, but he kind of looks a bit badass. He is a prisoner, and I definitely think he would have the character style of strength. So we've got 4 characters so far. We've got 4 different iterations of Moro, Mayrus, 7-3, Sagambo, and my 5th pick would be Daikaio Shinbu. Now if you've read the manga, Daikaio Shinbu puts a whooping on Moro in a unique way that only a Mojin could do. When Moro is confronted with this version of Boo's magical abilities taken completely off guard, and this could give us another version of Boo with a completely different moveset, because Boo is doing all kind of shenanigans in this particular fight. In fact, I believe if the Moro arc gets animated, the Moro vs Boo fight on Namek will be low-key one of the best fights in the series stylistically. Daikaio Shinbu would have all the usual traits that you often see with Boos in these games, but just to give a few honourable shout-outs or different character skins, you could also include the buffed up version of Ultra Instinct Saiyan Goku, and also Force Spirit Fish and Vegeta. Now this one would definitely be interesting, simply because you could give Vegeta a special move where if your opponent uses fusion and they fuse in game, Vegeta could use Force Spirit Fission that diffuses them and leaves them with barely any energy and does damage. And obviously by extension you could say that Moro 7-3 would get that technique as well, unless you go with the idea that Moro 7-3 would have to copy Vegeta in battle to gain that ability, which could be an avenue to take. And last idea, whilst I think it would be very hard to get Planet Moro in the game, by all means let me know any ideas you have. You could have Goku's Ultra Instinct avatar as a giant playable character. Now I know he hasn't really got that many movesets, and in the manga he just holds off Moro whilst Goku destroys Moro's crystal to win the fight. There might be a way to incorporate this and it would look pretty damn cool to see Goku's Ultra Instinct avatar, or Susano as most people call it. Now what type of maps could be introduced? Well, we'd likely get new Namek, which let's face it wouldn't be that different from old Namek, but I think one really interesting addition could be space. We see Moro fighting Daikaio Shinbu in space. I guess the problem with this is the majority of the cast and characters wouldn't actually be able to fight in space if that was the case. I'm sure you could find some really weird way around it, but imagine if in space there's a lot of comets around and you can get characters to throw comets at each other and smash through comets, etc. Now onto the episode battles that are going to be in the game, where they take different turns and diverge from the original story, basically what if scenarios, and some of them look absolutely spectacular. I'm going to propose 3 for the Moro arc. I really want to know yours down in the comment section. The 3 that I'm going to propose: what if Goku and Vegeta died against Moro on Namek when they originally fought? I think this would be a really interesting storyline, because then Moro would basically get to conquer the universe and likely at some point encounter Frieza, who we know has been revived from the Tournament of Power and doesn't have his black form yet. How would that battle go down? And we could play that battle in the game. That would be awesome. Second one, what if Gohan unlocked Gohan Beast against Moro on Earth when Moro punches a hole through Goku's chest? Does Gohan Beast wipe the floor with Moro, or does Moro find a way to copy Gohan's abilities or steal his energy? A very interesting battle that would be. What if Beerus steps in when Goku is failing against Morus. We know he nearly stepped in against Planet Moro when Goku was failing to get the job done, but because I can't figure out a way to get Planet Moro in the game, maybe if he steps in against Morus, it would be a really interesting story to tell. Obviously, Beerus would likely win, but ultimately, you get to finish off Morus with the God of Destruction himself, perhaps Hakaiing Moro out of existence. What a scene that would be. There would be plenty of costumes to add for a lot of characters, including most of the Super Warriors, including Gohan, Piccolo, Android 1718, Goku and Vegeta themselves, even the likes of Yamcha, Roshi, Tien, Chiaotzu. All of them are involved in this arc at some point. I'm just not sure any of them have fundamentally changed enough to warrant having new characters added towards the roster. However, there are some of the other Galactic Patrol prisoners that might be worth adding to there, like another Metal Man, amongst others. So obviously we know that there's a lot of issues going on behind the scenes in the Dragon Ball franchise, and this happening is unlikely to at least an anime adaptation gets made, which in itself is shaky at best. But I think we can all agree that this type of DLC would be absolutely wild and adds so much more to this game, and I think it's one of those where it's just take my money. Smash a like on the video if it would take your money too. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. I'm really looking forward to reading your comments. Subscribe if you're new to these ends. Plenty of videos coming with the release of Daima, Sparking Zero, and the return of the Dragon Ball Super manga. The 10th arc is on the horizon. Until next time, Ad Astra.